Hey folks, welcome back to Stoic Relationships. Let's get real for a second. Have you ever felt like your silence was supposed to make them miss you, but instead, it feels like nothing has changed? It's frustrating, isn't it? You try stepping back, you stop reaching out, but somehow, it's like they don't even notice. You're stuck wondering, why isn't this working? Why do they still seem so unaffected? Here's the truth that nobody talks about. Silence on its own doesn't guarantee anything. If the energy you're sending out still screams desperation or longing, they can sense it, even if you're not saying a word. And that's why it feels like your silence is powerless. But don't worry, you're not alone in this. So many people find themselves in this exact spot. And today, we're going to uncover the real reason why your silence isn't having the impact you want. What if I told you there's a better way? A way to reclaim your power, show them your worth, and make them feel your absence in a way that truly matters. By the end of this video, you'll understand the key mistakes you might be making, and more importantly, how to fix them. Stay with me, Stoic friends, because this is about to get real. Let's dive in. Number 1, your energy still chases them. Let's talk about something that isn't always obvious, but plays a huge role in relationships. Your energy. Even when you've stopped texting, calling, or trying to connect, the energy you're projecting can still chase them. Yes, folks, your silence isn't always as silent as you think. It's all about what's happening beneath the surface. Your thoughts, feelings, and intentions. Think about it. Have you ever found yourself replaying conversations in your head, wondering what they're thinking, or hoping they'll suddenly realize your worth and reach out? That's energy in motion. It may not come in the form of words, but it's there. And whether we like it or not, people can pick up on that. It's like when you walk into a room and feel the tension in the air. It's unspoken, but it's palpable. So, here's the problem. If your silence is just a tactic to get a reaction, they'll feel it. Instead of creating curiosity or making them miss you, it reinforces the dynamic where they hold the power. They sense that you're still emotionally chasing them. And guess what? It validates their belief that they don't need to put in any effort because, deep down, they know you're still there. Let me give you a simple analogy. Imagine trying to hold sand in your hand. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. That's what happens when your energy chases someone. It pushes them away. True silence, the kind that makes an impact, comes from a place of strength, not desperation. It's about stepping back, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. Here's something else to think about. Have you truly let go, or are you just pausing, waiting for them to notice? If it's the latter, then your energy is still tied to them, and that creates a loop where you're constantly hoping for validation. This isn't just exhausting for you, it's counterproductive. The key here is to shift your focus from them to yourself. Redirect that energy into things that make you feel fulfilled, confident, and grounded. Now, I know this is easier said than done. Breaking the habit of emotionally chasing someone takes awareness and effort. Start by asking yourself a simple question. Why am I still holding on? Dig deep into your intentions. Are you hoping for closure, validation, or to feel valued? Once you identify the root cause, you can start working on meeting those needs within yourself instead of looking for someone else to fill the gap. It's also worth noting that people are drawn to those who are self-assured and centered. When you shift your energy towards self-growth, it not only benefits you but also changes the dynamic. They'll sense the difference. It's no longer about you waiting for them. It's about you choosing yourself. And believe me, folks, that's the kind of energy that leaves a lasting impression. So, what can you do to make this shift? Start small. Pick one thing that brings you joy or a sense of accomplishment and invest your time and energy there. Maybe it's a hobby you've always wanted to try, a fitness goal you've been putting off, or even reconnecting with friends who uplift you. The point is to focus on things that enrich your life, independent of their response or attention. Remember, true power doesn't come from manipulating someone else's perception of you. It comes from knowing your worth and living in a way that reflects it. When you stop chasing, even energetically, you create space for something better. You might be surprised by how much changes when your silence is rooted in self-respect instead of longing. Folks, if this is resonating with you, let me know in the comments. Right, I choose myself, because that's the first step in taking your power back. And if you're finding value in this conversation, hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate your support. Let's keep going. There's so much more to unpack. Number 2, they don't see your value yet. Hey folks, let's tackle something that might feel painfully familiar. You're giving your all, your time, your energy, your care, but somehow it's as if they're blind to the incredible person standing right in front of them. Frustrating, isn't it? But here's the thing. Their inability to see your value isn't necessarily about you. Often, it's a reflection of where they are emotionally and mentally. Let's dive into why this happens. One major reason is that people are often preoccupied with their own lives and struggles. They might be so consumed by their own needs, insecurities, or past wounds that they fail to notice the value others bring into their lives. This isn't an excuse for their behavior, but understanding this can help you shift your perspective. When someone doesn't recognize your worth, it doesn't mean you're not valuable. It means they're not in a place to see it. Another factor? Familiarity. The more accessible you are, the more likely they are to take you for granted. It's human nature to overlook what seems constant and dependable. Think about it. When was the last time you truly appreciated the air you breathe or the sunlight streaming through your window? These things are essential, yet we rarely pause to acknowledge them. Similarly, when you're consistently present and giving, some people may unconsciously assume that you'll always be there, no matter what. Here's a harsh truth. The more you try to convince someone of your worth, the less likely they are to recognize it. Why? Because true value isn't something that needs to be proven. It's something that's inherently felt and realized. This is where the wisdom of Stoicism comes into play. Instead of seeking external validation, turn inward. Focus on living your values, setting clear boundaries, and exuding quiet confidence. Let me share a quick story to illustrate this. Imagine a diamond displayed in a high-end store. Its value isn't diminished if a passerby fails to notice it or chooses not to buy it. The diamond remains rare, beautiful, and valuable. The same principle applies to you. If someone can't see your worth, it doesn't mean you're any less extraordinary. Their inability to recognize your value reflects their own blind spots, not your essence. Now, let's talk about how you can handle this situation. First, take a step back and reflect on how you view yourself. Are you confident in your worth, or are you seeking validation from someone else to feel complete? The energy you project sets the tone for how others perceive you. When you believe in your own value, you naturally command respect. Next, consider creating space between you and the person who doesn't see your worth. This isn't about playing games. It's about allowing them the opportunity to miss your presence and realize its significance. Often, people only appreciate what they have once it's no longer readily available. By stepping back, you shift the dynamic and give them a chance to reevaluate their perspective. But let's be real, stepping back can be scary. There's always the fear that they might not come after you. But here's the empowering truth. If they don't make an effort to appreciate you, then they were never truly invested in the first place. And while that realization might sting, it's also freeing. It opens the door for you to invest your energy in people and relationships that genuinely value you. Lastly, remember that patience is key. People often take time to recognize what truly matters. By staying grounded in your self-worth and living authentically, you create an environment where your value can shine naturally. Over time, the right people will see and appreciate the incredible person you are. Before we wrap up this section, let me leave you with this thought. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. You are worthy, just as you are. And if you resonate with this, let me know in the comments. Type, "I embrace my worth" to affirm your journey. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next part of this video. Together, we're exploring why you should stop playing their game and start setting the rules for yourself. See you there. Number 3, you're playing their game, not yours. Hey there, Stoic friends. Let's take a moment to reflect on a scenario that might sound familiar. You're waiting for their response, analyzing their every move, trying to predict what they'll do next. Meanwhile, your emotions and actions revolve entirely around them. It's as though your whole life has been reduced to reacting to someone else's behavior. Sound familiar? If so, you're not playing your game. You're playing theirs. When you play someone else's game, you lose your power. It's like trying to win a race on their track, with rules they've set. Every time they pull away, you chase. When they give a little, you feel relief, only to find yourself back at square one when they pull away again. It's an exhausting cycle, isn't it? You're left drained, frustrated, and wondering why you feel so powerless in the relationship. But why do we fall into this trap? Often, it's because we equate connection with compliance. We think, if I can just figure out what they want and give it to them, they'll stay. This belief, though well-intentioned, is deeply flawed. When you base your actions on their whims, you're telling them that your value lies in how well you cater to their needs. Over time, this dynamic reinforces their control while diminishing your sense of self. Imagine this, you're playing chess, but instead of planning your moves, you're only reacting to theirs. You're not strategizing because you're too focused on what they'll do next. The result? You're always one step behind, scrambling to catch up. But what happens if you flip the script? What if you stop reacting and start strategizing your own moves instead? Taking back control starts with self-awareness. Ask yourself, are you always waiting for their texts or calls? Do you say yes to things you'd rather not do just to avoid upsetting them? These patterns indicate that you're letting their behavior dictate yours. Recognizing these habits is the first step toward change. Next, redirect your energy inward. Instead of pouring your time and effort into deciphering their actions, focus on yourself. What are your goals, passions, and values? Use the time and energy you've been spending on them to invest in your personal growth. Not only will this shift your focus, but it'll also demonstrate that your value isn't tied to their approval. Boundaries are another crucial step. Without boundaries, you're playing a game with no rules, where they always hold the upper hand. Boundaries say, this is what I will and won't accept. For instance, if they consistently cancel plans at the last minute, let them know it's not okay. If they ignore your feelings, make it clear that you deserve respect. Boundaries are about respecting yourself, and when you respect yourself, others are more likely to respect you too. Another powerful tool is emotional detachment. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop being controlled by their actions. When you detach, you reclaim your emotional independence. You're no longer driven by their approval or shaken by their disapproval. Instead, you're steady, confident, and focused on your path. It's also essential to define success in your relationships. Success isn't about winning their attention or approval. It's about staying true to yourself while fostering mutual respect. When you play your own game, you're not trying to fit into their world. You're inviting them to meet you in yours. And if they choose not to, that's their loss, not yours. Stoicism offers invaluable insights here. It teaches us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, actions, and responses, while letting go of what we can't. When you embody Stoic principles, you exude calm confidence. You're not chasing them. You're standing firm in your truth. And that strength is magnetic. So, what do you think? Are you ready to flip the script and reclaim your power in this dynamic? Drop a comment below with "My story," my rules, to let us know you're taking the reins. And before you go, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support not only helps this community grow, but it also means you'll never miss out on these transformative insights. We've got so much more to explore together. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Stay focused, stay resilient, and remember, your power is in your hands. Number 4, they know you'll break eventually. Hey folks, let's dig into a scenario that might feel uncomfortably familiar. Have you ever felt like someone is testing you, waiting for the moment when you finally crack under the pressure of silence, detachment, or unspoken tension? If that rings true, you're not alone. When someone knows you'll eventually break, they hold all the cards. At least, they think they do. Let's explore why this happens and, more importantly, how you can shift the narrative. When people sense your vulnerability, they often exploit it. This isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's subconscious. But the result is the same. They believe your resolve is temporary. Your silence is a tactic rather than a commitment, and your boundaries are bendable. This perception gives them the upper hand because they know they can simply wait you out. The moment they see you flinch, the power dynamic tilts in their favor. Let's start with why they're so confident. It often stems from patterns they've observed in your behavior. Maybe you've tried to set boundaries before, but softened them when things got tough. Or perhaps you've gone silent, only to break it with a text or call. Each time you revert to old habits, you reinforce their belief that your silence is not permanent. It's a pause. They learn to anticipate your breaking point, which becomes their safety net. But here's the thing. Your silence is your power, and when you let it waver, you hand that power back. When they see cracks in your resolve, they feel validated. It's almost as if they've won a game they were playing all along. That's why it's critical to examine your patterns and recognize where you might be unintentionally giving them this leverage. So, how do you stop them from believing you'll break? The key lies in consistency and clarity. Silence isn't just about not speaking. It's about embodying your boundaries with unwavering confidence. When they test you with provocative behaviors, indirect messages, or attempts to bait you into responding, your job is to stand firm. This doesn't mean being cold or cruel. It means being resolute. One way to reinforce your silence is by redirecting your energy. Instead of focusing on what they're thinking or waiting for their next move, channel your attention into yourself. Build your confidence, pursue your passions, and invest in your growth. When you're busy living your best life, their expectations of your breaking point become irrelevant. You're no longer playing the game they've constructed. Now, let's address the emotional toll. It's not easy to resist the urge to reach out, especially when emotions are running high. But think about what happens when you do. Does it truly resolve the situation? Or does it create a temporary sense of relief while undermining your long-term goals? Breaking your silence might feel comforting in the moment, but it often leads to more confusion, and a deeper sense of powerlessness. Instead, remind yourself why you're holding back in the first place. Is it to regain your self-worth? To establish healthier dynamics? To show them that you're no longer willing to play by their rules? Whatever your reason, hold on to it like a lifeline. Let it guide your actions and keep you grounded. If they're confident you'll break, the best way to challenge that belief is by proving them wrong. Show them that your silence isn't a strategy. It's a reflection of your growth, your values, and your refusal to settle for anything less than respect. This shift in perspective will not only surprise them, but also force them to reevaluate how they view you. And folks, here's where it gets interesting. The moment they realize you're not going to break, they're the ones who start to feel uneasy. They'll question their own assumptions, wonder if they've underestimated you, and perhaps even rethink their actions. This is the power of holding your ground. It turns the tables and places the responsibility back on them. So, if you've ever felt like they're just waiting for you to cave, remember this. Your silence is more than a pause. It's a declaration of strength. By staying consistent, redirecting your energy, and holding firm to your boundaries, you can transform the dynamic and reclaim your power. Now, what about you, Stoic friends? How have you handled situations where someone tested your resolve? Share your 3 words of empowerment in the comments below. Let's inspire each other to stay strong. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights like this. There's so much more to explore, and I can't wait to share it with you. Number 5. They feel no sense of loss. Hey, Stoic friends, let's dive into a hard truth. Sometimes, no matter how much silence you maintain, it doesn't seem to affect the other person. They carry on as though nothing has changed, and you're left wondering why your absence hasn't created the impact you expected. The painful reality is that they don't feel a sense of loss. Why? Let's unpack this and figure out what you can do to regain your power. First, let's address the most common reason. They didn't value your presence in the first place. This doesn't mean you lack worth. It's often about their inability to recognize it. People who take others for granted don't realize what they have until it's gone, or sometimes, not even then. They've grown accustomed to your efforts, your availability, and your emotional labor. When you step back, they might not notice right away because they never fully appreciated the value you brought to their life. But here's the deeper layer. Their lack of response to your silence might stem from their own emotional detachment. Some individuals have built walls so high that they don't allow themselves to feel the impact of losing someone. They're disconnected, not just from you, but often from themselves as well. Their inability to feel a sense of loss says more about their inner struggles than it does about you. Another reason they don't feel the loss. They might believe they still have control over the situation. If you've been the one chasing, apologizing, or making the effort in the past, they might assume that this time will be no different. They're confident that, sooner or later, you'll return to the dynamic they're comfortable with. This sense of security prevents them from recognizing what they've lost, or motivates them to ignore it altogether. So, what can you do when your silence doesn't seem to matter? First, understand that this is not about seeking revenge or playing games. It's about creating a shift in the dynamic, one that allows you to reclaim your emotional power. This starts with a mindset change. Instead of focusing on their lack of response, focus on yourself. Ask yourself, why does their reaction matter so much to me? What am I hoping to achieve with my silence? The truth is, silence alone isn't always enough to create change. It has to be paired with action. Actions that demonstrate your growth, independence, and self-respect. Show them, through your life choices, that you're no longer tethered to their validation. Whether it's pursuing your passions, nurturing other relationships, or setting boundaries, your actions should reflect the strength and confidence you're cultivating within yourself. It's also crucial to accept that not everyone will feel your absence the way you want them to, and that's okay. Your worth is not defined by their ability to recognize it. If they don't feel a sense of loss, it's not your responsibility to make them feel it. What matters is how you value yourself and how you choose to move forward. Let's consider this. Sometimes people don't feel the loss because they've never experienced the full extent of your presence. Maybe you've been holding back, not fully showing up as your authentic self. In such cases, your silence might not seem impactful because they never truly understood the value of what they had. Use this realization as an opportunity to reflect on how you can bring your full self to relationships in the future. Not to prove your worth to others, but to live authentically for yourself. And here's the twist, folks. When they see you thriving without them, when they realize you're no longer trying to make them see your value, that's when the sense of loss often hits. But by then, you've already moved on. You're no longer waiting for their recognition or validation. You've reclaimed your power, and that's what truly matters. Before we wrap this up, let me ask you, how do you handle it when someone doesn't feel your absence? Share your 3 words of wisdom in the comments to inspire others in our community. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Our journey of self-discovery is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay strong, and remember, your value is undeniable, even if someone else fails to see it. Number 6, you haven't communicated your standards. Hey Stoic friends, let's talk about a critical aspect of relationships that often gets overlooked: setting and communicating your standards. Have you ever felt frustrated when someone doesn't respect your boundaries or seems oblivious to what you need? Sometimes, it's not about them deliberately ignoring you. It's about you not making your standards clear. Let's dive into why this happens, how it impacts your relationships, and most importantly, what you can do about it. The first step to understanding this dynamic is recognizing that people are not mind readers. Even the most well-intentioned person can't meet your expectations if they don't know what they are. Many of us fall into the trap of assuming that others should just know what we want or need. But when we don't express ourselves, we leave room for misunderstanding, disappointment, and unmet needs. Now, let's explore why this communication gap happens. Often, it's rooted in fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, or fear of being perceived as too much. You might hesitate to set clear standards because you don't want to push the other person away. Ironically, this silence can create even more distance. When you compromise your standards to avoid conflict, you send the message that your needs are negotiable or that they don't matter. Over time, this can lead to resentment and a breakdown in the relationship. Here's another layer to consider. Communicating your standards is not just about telling someone what you expect. It's about embodying those standards in how you live your life. If you say you value respect, but consistently allow disrespectful behavior, your words lose their power. People take cues from your actions more than your words. If your actions align with your standards, you're not just telling them what you value, you're showing them. So, how can you start communicating your standards effectively? First, get clear on what those standards are. Take some time to reflect on your core values and what you truly need in your relationships. Are you looking for mutual respect, honesty, emotional support? Write these down and get specific. The clearer you are with yourself, the easier it will be to communicate these expectations to others. Once you've identified your standards, practice expressing them in a calm, assertive way. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me." You could say, "I feel valued when I'm heard. Can we make an effort to have more balanced conversations?" Yes, this approach focuses on your needs rather than blaming the other person, making it more likely for them to respond positively. But what happens when you've communicated your standards and they're still not being met? This is where accountability comes in. Communicating your standards is only half the equation. Enforcing them is the other half. If someone continues to disregard your boundaries, it's up to you to decide how to respond. Maybe it's a conversation to reinforce those standards, or maybe it's stepping back from the relationship. Remember, respecting your own standards is just as important as expecting others to respect them. Here's a powerful truth. Communicating your standards isn't just about improving your relationships with others. It's about strengthening your relationship with yourself. When you honor your standards, you're affirming your worth and showing yourself the respect you deserve. This internal alignment makes you feel more confident, grounded, and in control. Let's flip the perspective for a moment. Think about someone who has clear standards and communicates them effortlessly. They know their worth, and they don't settle for less. How do you perceive them? Chances are, you admire their confidence and feel drawn to their energy. That's the kind of impact you can have when you start owning your standards. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Not everyone will rise to meet your standards, and that's okay. Communicating your expectations is not about controlling others. It's about creating clarity. If someone can't or won't meet your standards, it's an opportunity to reassess the relationship. It's better to have that clarity than to stay in a situation where your needs are consistently unmet. As we wrap up this section, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take a moment to reflect on your own standards. Are they clear to you? Have you communicated them to the people in your life? If not, start small. Choose one relationship and one standard, and have an honest conversation about it. You might be surprised by how much this simple act can transform your connections. What's your biggest takeaway from this discussion on communicating standards? Drop 3 words in the comments that reflect how you plan to approach this in your own life. And hey, if you're finding value in these insights, don't forget to subscribe. We've got plenty more coming your way to help you build stronger, more meaningful relationships. Let's keep growing together. Number 7, your silence lacks purpose. Hey Stoic friends, let's explore one of the most important insights of all: why silence without purpose has no impact. Silence can be one of the most effective tools in human relationships, but only when used intentionally. Without purpose, silence often falls flat, leaving you frustrated and disheartened. So, what does it mean for silence to lack purpose? And how can you transform it into a powerful force for clarity and connection? Let's dive deep into this. Imagine a situation where you've decided to go silent after feeling ignored, disrespected, or unappreciated. You stop responding, hoping your absence will make them realize your value. But what happens instead? Days go by, weeks even, and nothing changes. They seem unbothered, indifferent even. The truth is, silence by itself isn't enough. It needs a message behind it. When your silence lacks purpose, it's like shouting into the void, expecting an echo that never comes. To understand this better, think of silence as a form of communication. Like words, silence can convey emotions, intent, and boundaries. However, unlike words, silence is easily misunderstood unless it's anchored by clear actions. If your silence is meant to create space, foster reflection, or establish boundaries, it needs to be paired with consistent behavior that reinforces those goals. Otherwise, it risks being seen as passive-aggressive, indifferent, or even weak. Let's unpack why purpose is the missing ingredient. When you go silent without a plan, It often stems from an emotional reaction: hurt, frustration, or disappointment. While those feelings are valid, using silence as a knee-jerk response rarely yields the outcome you want. Why? Because it leaves the other person guessing. They don't know if you're upset, disinterested, or simply distracted. Ambiguity dilutes the power of your silence, rendering it ineffective. Now, contrast this with purposeful silence. Purposeful silence is proactive, not reactive. It comes from a place of self-awareness and emotional clarity. It says, "I'm choosing not to engage right now because I value my peace, and I want to approach this situation thoughtfully." This kind of silence is not about punishing someone or avoiding conflict. It's about creating space for reflection, growth, and meaningful action. For example, if someone has crossed a boundary, your silence can signal that their behavior is unacceptable, but it shouldn't stop there. Follow up by clearly communicating your boundary when the time feels right. The silence serves as a pause, a way to de-escalate the situation and gather your thoughts. Its power lies in the fact that it's deliberate and backed by action. One of the biggest mistakes people make with silence is using it as a one-size-fits-all solution. They hope it will fix problems, change behavior, or make someone miss them. But silence is not magic. It's a tool, and like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how you use it. Without clarity and intent, silence often backfires, creating more distance and misunderstanding. So, how do you ensure your silence carries purpose? Start by defining what you want to achieve. Is it to create space for yourself? To encourage the other person to reflect on their actions? To set a boundary? Once you're clear on your goal, align your silence with supporting actions. For instance, if your silence is meant to signal a need for respect, reinforce it by standing firm in your boundaries and communicating them when the time comes. Another critical aspect of purposeful silence is self-reflection. Use the quiet moments not just to create distance from the other person, but to reconnect with yourself. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What do I need? How can I approach this situation with clarity and strength? The more self-aware you are, the more powerful your silence becomes. Let's not forget timing. Silence is most effective when paired with the right timing. If you go silent and wait too long without taking further action, the message gets lost. The other person may move on, misinterpret your intent, or assume you've given up. Purposeful silence is a pause, not an endpoint. It creates space for you to regroup and re-engage with clarity. Purposeful silence also shifts the power dynamic, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that reflects your self-respect. It shows that you're not at the mercy of someone else's actions or validation. You're in control of your emotions and your narrative. This kind of inner strength is not only magnetic, it's transformative. It challenges others to meet you at your level, to respect your boundaries, and to value your presence. As we wrap up this discussion, remember this: silence is not the absence of action, it's the presence of intention. It's a tool for growth, self-respect, and meaningful connection when used with purpose. So, the next time you choose silence, make sure it's not just an emotional reaction, but a deliberate choice that reflects your values and goals. Does this resonate with you? Have you experienced the power of purposeful silence, or do you struggle to make your silence impactful? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And there you have it, my Stoic friends. Insights to help you understand and navigate the power of silence in relationships. Remember, your silence should always reflect your strength and purpose, not frustration or defeat. If today's discussion resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It not only helps us grow, but also keeps these valuable conversations coming your way. And as you move forward, let your actions, words, and even your silence reflect the wisdom and confidence you're cultivating every day. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.